It's a beautiful winter's day and I'm going to go for a walk around my neighbourhood down to the beach, try and clear my head about what's happening health wise. Some of you know I've got chronic heart disease, degenerative heart failure. That means it's never going to get better, but it doesn't mean I'm going to die tomorrow. In particular, I've got AF, atrial fibrillation. That is basically a short circuit in the heart's muscle that makes it beat irregularly. But that's a blanket term for heart arrhythmia or irregular heartbeat. So, there we go. I was diagnosed in 2009. When that happened, I thought I would be dead by now. I really thought it was a life sentence, you know, on your execution. You're going to be dead in a couple of weeks, lad. But that's not the case. It's now 2026. I'm still alive, still living a relatively normal, active life. You have to get used to it. Anyway, 2009 I got AF. This year I came across some research I wasn't aware of before, and basically it said children that experience between 4 and 10 traumatic events during their childhood have a 50% increased chance of having arrhythmia or chronic heart disease during their adult life. So I mean, don't take my word for it. Get on Google, search it for yourself, you know, have a look. But some of you may know who and what my father was. I had more than 1,000 adverse childhood experiences before I left home aged 18. So when you think about it, my mother had AF. She had a pretty traumatic childhood by today's standards, and I guess my dad, he had tachycardia. I can remember him making me feel his pulse when I was a kid. His heart was going 100 beats a minute, going crazy. And he never had a good childhood either, to be fair. No excuse for what he did to me. But both my mum and my dad had bad childhoods. So, well, the research says it's genetic. So both parents had it. Therefore, the chance that I'm going to have it is increased because of the genetics. But what about the 1,000 plus adverse experiences that I had over a decade from the age of 4 to the age of 14. What physiological effect did that have on my body, on my heart? So I came across this research and I read through it, the physiological effects of trauma on your adrenal gland, on your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. It gets so used to being switched on, it stays on. And that's why, after reading that research, I kind of figure, I lose my temper quickly. I get overly emotional at very small things. But there you go. I've got chronic AF. I've had it for 17 years or something, since 2009. And here we are. This new research came out 2023-2024 about childhood trauma and AF. So 2 factors: the genetic, both my parents had heart arrhythmia, and the situational, both my parents had traumatic childhoods. And then me, I've got that as well. So the genetic, both my parents had arrhythmia, and the trauma, my dad was a fucking nonce. Go and have a look at this little shrine. I've not been down here before. Yeah. So that's what AF is, and that's why I think I've got it. In addition to the genetic risk and the result of trauma, I did do an awful lot of drugs when I was a young man, in my teens and early 20s, using too much cocaine and MDMA and amphetamines isn't going to do your brain much good developmentally. Here's a local shrine, eh? Can you see the mountains over there? I live at the bottom of that range of mountains. So, part 1, summary what AF is: short circuitry in the heart. Most recent CT scan said my heart is in very good condition, just the electrics are fucked up. The genetic link: my parents had arrhythmia, I've got arrhythmia. The trauma link: my parents both had traumatic childhoods, different reasons. We don't know the specifics of some of it. We do know the specifics of other parts. And then I've got both the genetic inheritance, experiencing massive trauma as a child, having PTSD, and being a junkie and being an alcoholic. That's what's brought me to where I am now, 55 years old, with chronic AF, preparing for a second surgery in a couple of weeks. Part 2, I'm going to talk about my treatment pathway. So the treatment I've undergone from being diagnosed to standing here outside this little shrine in the middle of the Ekime countryside. So bear with me a second. Rightio, let me get my camera set up again. Right, so treatment. When I first was diagnosed, I'd had a couple of AF attacks before and not really known what was going on. Just figured it was my heart racing or something. But then one day it got really bad, and we called, it was in the UK, and we called the 110 national, like, non-emergency NHS number. And they decided to call an ambulance. Ambulance came, took me to hospital, and that was the first time that there was a ECG taken that confirmed AF. So while I think I had it before, that was the diagnosis in 2009. Okay, so this is what, you know, that time I thought that was it, that was game over. And I ended up joining an online group, Health Unlocked, and found a AF support group there. The same time, I began taking medication because they had a confirmed, you know, ECG. I'm no doctor, so I'm not commentating, I'm just telling you what happened. I was given 10 milligrams of bisoprolol per day. And any of you that have got AF or had any experience in beta blockers knows that that's a big dose. It makes you impotent, among other things. Slows your heart rate right down. You know, even if you exercise, your heart rate never rises. So you get breathless going uphill. And they said, right, we're going to make an appointment for you to see the cardiologist. Now in Japan, if I want to see my cardiologist, I get in the car and I go and see my cardiologist. It's that simple. The system is you pay national insurance as you do in the UK, and then you pay 10% of the cost of your medical treatment. So a doctor's visit plus your medicine, it's probably about £5 or £10. But you can go tomorrow. So my first AF diagnosis said, oh, we'll make an appointment for you to see the cardiologist. 4 months, that'll be 4 months. And the anxiety, I remember walking down Lincoln High Street, being near the Stonebow in Lincoln, and receiving a call from the GP, and he got a letter from the cardiologist, and he's explaining, you've got paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. The prognosis is good, you're not going to die, but blah blah blah. That cardiologist put me on Soltalol, perhaps, and he reduced the bisoprolol down to 2.5, I think, and that managed to control it reasonably well. And you know, you take tablets in the morning and the evening and your heart remains normal rhythm. You can go about your life. But if you stop taking them, your heart goes out of whack, and it kind of feels like you know when you hook a fish out of the river and you lay it on the ground, it flaps. That's how it feels, and it's quite unnerving. Anyway, you know, I was working, raising the kids, you know. So before Kai was born, Una was 2 years old. Yeah, so you get on with life. What else can you do? Okay, so I've got to get myself in frame again. Here we are. So one thing that I think has made my AF significantly worse over the years, or even for onset cause, is stress. I won't say trauma, the parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, all kind of the same shit, the same triggers, you know, worry, stress, being in situations that give you that long exposure to you know, adrenaline and feeling fight or flight. You know, I want to cross the road. Who's that talking about? So eventually you adapt to having AF. You know, I was having 2 to 4 hour episode once or twice a year, and it's kind of stable. But other things come along, don't they? Life moves on and shit happens, as they say. And other life events can trigger additional stresses. Yeah? So, as a lot of you will know, in 2000 I went to Japan for the first time, fell in love with this country and its people and the culture. Not the government though, that's for a different video. Left in 2003, and I was in a relationship with a lady at the time, and that, for me, that relationship ended in Amsterdam in the summer of 2003. I can't remember how it worked out. The government paid for your ticket back from the jet program back to the UK, and we managed to get a stopover in Amsterdam. The idea was to adjust back to life after the jet program, gather our thoughts, what we're going to do as a couple. I got a place at postgrad, and we're supposed to be moving to Lancaster. And yeah, I don't know how we I don't know how we swung it. I don't know how we managed to swing it, but we ended up in Amsterdam for a few days immediately after the jet program. And for me, that's where that relationship ended, in Amsterdam. But, you know, we put on a face for a little bit longer after that. After Amsterdam, she went home to her family in Wales, and I went to see my mum, who had divorced my dad, and she was living in Grantham. And then that's where everything kicked off, which led to me writing the book. And I can remember it as clear as day, coming out of WH Smith's or Woolworths, whatever it was in Grantham, standing on the pavement, look to my right, look to my left, and there he is with this little kid. And he's so intent on the kid, looking down at the kid, he didn't see me at all, and I walked past. And that was the decision made to go and tell the cops. And that journey through the courts and the court system, as a victim, later professionally doing lectures for trainee officers, and working in criminal justice reform, briefly with a short spell working on the Lincolnshire Criminal Justice Board. The reasons that all ended is the subject of another video. But the point being that process, from seeing him in Grantham that day to standing on the wall of Lincoln Crown Court, watching him being taken away with Mr. You know who you are, Mr. Acorn Cock, standing with my brother on the wall, watching him being taken away. That journey from A to B was so intense. And you link that back to what I talked about previously about, you know, stress being a factor and all that, in addition to the genetic risks. So from A to B, from seeing him going through the courts, getting him sent to prison. And there's an add-on to that, because after he'd done his time, my wife and I had settled down, built a nice life for ourselves. He gets let out. He did 2/3 of his sentence. We started dealing with the probation service. You know, his probation officer connected to some guy who has to tell me you know, he's been released soon because of this, and there's going to be this for the remainder of his sentence. He'll be under these restrictions, so he won't be allowed to enter into the county where you live, and so don't worry about it. I say he's released, and he's been a good boy. We've not heard from him, left us alone. At the end of his custodial sentence, when the probation is dropped, we get the letter to tell us that he's now served his sentence and restrictions have been lifted, and he can go wherever he wants from now on. We always, you know, my wife and I did 88 Temple pilgrimage in 2007. Yeah, 2007. And again, selfishly, without consultation with my wife, who's from here, I made the decision. Where am I going? Oh, over there. I made the decision I want to live here, where I'm living now. Kind of selfish, but undertaking that journey cemented my desire to live here, and I hope you can understand that. You know, if you think about where I was living before, and no disrespect to anybody that lives on Monks Road or Spa Street, of any of the streets up and down that area, they're all real people. I see you. But any of you, would you swap Monks Road for this? Be honest now. You know, leave a comment. You know, tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So when his restrictions were lifted and he was free to come and go as he pleased, that was when the decision was made to come back to Japan, really. I mean, I knew I wanted to from doing the 88 temple pilgrimage with my wife and seeing how beautiful it was, and the contrast from the places that I was used to hanging out in or living in. Is this working? Yeah, it's still working. That's good. And by that time, you know, Una was, I don't know, growing up. I think Chia-san was pregnant with Kaya. And I knew when his restrictions were lifted, I knew that one day, if I didn't take decisive action, I knew one day I'd be walking in town or around the cathedral or even in the cathedral. I could see this happening in my mind's eye, that I would bump into him and he would, as a form of greeting, not as an attack, as a form of greeting, he would reach towards one of my children and say, "Hello, I'm your granddad." I would have smashed him in the face so hard I would have killed him. After everything that I went through as a child and the court case, and listening to him deny and victim blame, he seduced me. Fuck off, I was 4 years old. Seduced you wanker. The whole business of his penis accidentally coming into contact with my anus, and the judge asking him in court, "Excuse me, Mr. Fares, can you please explain to the court how that could happen?" So again, that's part of the journey from A to B, going through those experiences. And why am I sharing all this? Stress, and I want you to understand the stress. Yeah, to get from A to B. I made that decision in Grantham to go into the police station, and I faced the consequences of that action, and I took care of business. I got the job done. But to what extent? The stress. You know, how many times do you think I had thoughts of suicide during that year and a half? A lot. Because, you know, there's nobody there for you from the state You can't, when you're a victim of a crime, you can't have access to a lawyer or a barrister unless you pay for it yourself. And when you're a fucking broke junkie with a new wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, she was still my girlfriend, but it's not the point. When you're unable to afford access to justice, you're denied justice. So as a victim of crime, reporting him and going through all that, I had no legal counsel because I couldn't fucking afford any. But he had access to a barrister for guidance. And just so you know, I had to step into the dock in Lincoln Crown Court without any legal counsel, only a brief chat with some guys at victim support and a bunch of stoners, my friends, a bunch of hippies and stoners for advice. I stepped into that dock and I gave evidence, and what happened? Perhaps you don't know. The jury was dismissed because one of the jurors had some kind of fucking breakdown listening to me give evidence. So we had to start again, and I had to do that twice, right? And I'm laughing because I want you to understand the stress. I want you to see that, understand that. I mean, it's unfucking-believable that you do that with no support. He got state-paid legal aid and backing of a barrister, counsel. He was coached basically on what to say to prove his innocence, but he failed, and he was fucking sent to prison. Yeah, the stress. Think about that, the stress. So it isn't just the decade, the decade of my childhood. That additional journey from seeing him in Grantham, from that point, going to the police, going backpacking, meeting my wife, coming back, trying to finish a degree, postgraduate degree, when you're so broke you have to shoplift to eat, not getting help from the university. My mates give me their last £5, but the system, no, you're on your own, fam. They're not there for you. They say, oh, we have student services. Fuck off. They give you nothing. And I basically got kicked out of St. Martin's College, shuffled out, because I said to a lecturer, I haven't got my funding. What the fuck am I supposed to do? And he said that was harassment. And that was the end of my PGC. I think, had that not happened, I would have got through it somehow. But I did pass the first year. I completed the first year with good average grades. Yeah. And what I'm trying to say there is the system it gives you nothing when you're going through the court case. Victim support, no victim support. Really, it's lip service. The people mean well, but they can't give you what you need. You need access to a barrister. You need counsel, because you're going into that blind and you're facing a person who's a very, very intellectually sharp legal mind. Me, a fucking stoner living at Ashley's house on Monks Road, versus a barrister, arguing about stuff that happened 20 fucking years ago. Stress, man, stress. Yeah. So that all finished, but what I'm trying to make you understand is it's not only the act in and of itself. The additional, to put things right, you have to take more weight upon yourself without any assistance. to be able to do that, you know. And the people, Darren, Paul, Steve, Dave, Ashley, and a couple of others, if I've forgotten who you are, you know, these people, they're not social workers and lawyers, you know, but they gave me more support than the state did, you know. And then this brings in the question as why people take drugs, because people don't understand that when you've lived from 4 years old doing what I had to do to survive to you know, that point in my life where I saw him in Grantham, and I've got to take care of that now because he's going to fuck that little boy. From all of that, the stress building. But after that point, it continues. If you take that on, you're on your own. You're on your own. But I think the people around me at that time, my friends, some of who are no longer friends, but that's neither here nor there. At that time, when you see something like that going on, and you know in your heart of hearts that this is authentic and real, you find the power from somewhere to sit with them. And those friends sat with me during all of that. They slept on my mother's floor. Don't touch the fucking clock now, Steve. Remember, don't touch the fucking clock. They slept on my mother's floor so that they could be there for me in that court. But the state gave me nothing, no support. Anyway, we got it done, and I come to Japan. The cumulative stress of a childhood and taking care of that business, all of that stress, on top of the genetic disposition to atrial fibrillation. When I arrived in Japan in 2013, my heart was all over the fucking place. Somehow I managed to get a job. When you've got AF, some days you're okay if you can just sit there and, you know, do whatever. Some days it completely disables you. You can't do anything. You're like a zombie. But I've got a job. It was a good job too. And I managed to do the job with a failing heart. One of the things I noticed when I came here, that AF patients, because of the risk of a clot forming in the heart, they have to take anticoagulant medication. I think most of you know that. But when I came here, the anticoagulant medication was 5 milligrams less than I'd been prescribed in the United Kingdom. And the doctor said, well, that's because Japanese people are smaller. But I'm not Japanese and I'm not small. So I did worry about that, but you have to follow the protocol. And to have a surgery as a mere pleb, you have to have like two failed drug interventions. Similar with depression, for if you can't walk into a clinic and get magic mushrooms. To get that in the UK, you have to be research subject for a university. You have to have like 20 years proven depression resistant, blah de blah de blah, to be taken seriously. So we tried all sorts of drugs. I ended up having a surgery. No, before the surgery, I had a DC cardioversion. And that's where they put you on a defibrillator and shock your heart back into rhythm. And it worked, but I didn't get enough sedation, so I wasn't asleep. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a medical procedure where you've been awake, but that's traumatic, man. That's not fun. It was like being kicked in the chest by a horse, and that's happened to me 4 times in Japan. And that's not a critique, that's just their science. You know, they're not good at listening to patients, doctors or authority figures, and you respect them. If the doctor says jump out the window, you jump out the fucking window. You don't question it. But I did, I researched it and, you know, found out stuff. The DC cardioversion was successful, but it had reverted back into AF before we got home. After leaving the hospital, it went back into AF while I was in the car. So I ended up having a first ablation in 2015. After the DC cardioversion, they did a transesophageal echocardiogram, which is where they push an like an echo scanner down your throat to scan your heart for clots from the inside. They did that without sedation. They give me sedation, but it didn't work. I wasn't sedated and I didn't go to sleep. So they forcing this rod down your throat. And I'm laughing now, but it wasn't fucking funny at the time, I'll tell you that. We get through that part of the procedure. Then we go to the surgery itself. They take me down to the surgery. Are you going to go sleep now, Mr. Fairhurst? Are you asleep? No, I'm not asleep. No, don't fucking start cutting me open yet. I'm not asleep. All right, you're going to go sleep now, Mr. Fairhurst. Are you asleep? And bam, I was out. But that surgery, I woke up halfway through, and I can remember lifting my head up and seeing the guy on the catheter on my femoral artery, the guy who's operating the catheter, looking up from between my dick and balls, which is taped off to one side, and we made eye contact, and I'm said to him, "Itai, fucking itai," and hearing the nurses giggle because I swore, used the F word, and then out again, out. That surgery. But I count though the DC cardioversion and the transesophageal echocardiogram and waking up in surgery, I count those as being traumatic. But on the scale of trauma to what I'm being desensitized to during the course of my childhood and going through the court system, for me it was 2 out of 10 on the scale of trauma. And the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad at all. To be fair, not that bad at all. But it's all adding on to the cumulative amount of stress that's gone through my parasympathetic nervous system. My adrenaline spikes, fight or flight attacks, etc, etc, etc. It's all stress. And I'm pretty sure that if you get what I'm trying to say, while I may have had a genetic predisposition to have AF because both my parents had AF, I think that was sped up very, very aggressively by the total amount of stress my mind and body has experienced during the course of my adult life. And I can't say that since living in this you know, let me show you around again this stunning place. I'd love to say that everything has been, you know, bed of roses, but that'd be a lie. It hasn't all been easy. Can you see there's more of the sea for you to look at. It hasn't all been easy. We've had ups and downs. Every family does. Even the rich famous people who put on this facade that their success buys them everything, it doesn't. You know, look at them. Look at Will Smith's children. What the fuck? How can you not say that these people are mentally unstable? I thought I was the fucking mad one. Look at Will Smith's son these days, for fuck's sake. Madness. So, getting here to this point, even though I continue to have a balance of stress and daily life, things that everybody goes through, the weight of that cumulative experience has taken its toll on my heart. That's my belief, sitting here facing a second ablation on the 2nd of February. Doctor don't care about that because they're scientists. There's a problem, there's a heart here that's not working right, and to fix that short circuit we've got to get inside the heart somehow and stop that breaker, you know, put a breaker in to stop that circuit sparking. But in my heart I know deep down it's you know, it's a reasonably safe procedure. There are complications, but the team is competent and well respected. You know, it's not in some backstreet Bangkok clinic. It's a top hospital, so I don't really have any worry with that. I don't know if my ramblings help you understand when I say I have chronic heart disease, and this is what it's called, and this is how I think I got to this point. I think that this is the point of this video, is to clear that. And if you have any doubt or you know, get on Google, get on ChatGPT or whichever AI you prefer, and type in the effect of childhood trauma on heart disease in later life, and read the first 5 articles that come up, you know. And I know that some of you get that because you've walked similar paths. You may not have heart failure yourselves, but I know that if you've had that kind of beginning in your life, which I would say that's not normal, but the older I get, the more normal it seems, and the more people I've seen that go through something during the course of their life. I don't know. I remember you, Scott. You're not forgotten. I wish you could have reached out to me, man, and talked about that. And it grieved me. My friend committed suicide, and we'd talked about suicide before because he knew my dad. He lived across the road from me as a child. He never said directly or not that my dad got his hands on him, but he got his hands on other boys in the village. So I wouldn't have been surprised if Scott had said that, but he never did. He never did. But he knew my dad, and he knew what my dad was, as an adult, we talked about suicide, Scott and I, and he took his own life, and I don't know why. Just got too much for him, poor fucker. But people don't understand. I had this thing. Sorry, Clive, I'm going to talk about what he said the other day. He put a post up, this new friend of mine, saying about people who commit suicide and what they leave behind, and thinking about myself with two attempts, and about Scott, who'd had several attempts and one successful, obviously, to add some counter to that, and to try and make people understand the cumulative effect of trauma and stress and living in a state of hypervigilance. And I don't want your pity, I don't want your fucking sympathy, because I know there are more of us, and I'm addressing you because I know. I mean, I see these people on TikTok and Twitter lately doing all their patriotism bullshit. You don't get to be that kind of person without having a fucking story in the closet. Those men are not normal. They haven't come from good families. They've had shit go in their lives that pushed them in that direction, you know, but they're too cowardly to go and sit with a shaman in Peru and face their fucking demons, so they pass it on to everybody else. And I'm talking to you, Tommy Robinson, and all your Nazi mates, the 8 of them that are in prison that you defended. You cunts. You only moan about Muslim nonsense. What about the white ones? 78% of the prisoners in my dad's prison, HMP Watton, were white. 78%. And half of those were in Britain First and the EDL. You motherfucker. Condemn all of them, not just the brown ones, you cunt. Sorry about that, but that stuff gets my goat. These people pretend to be the arbiter of moral truth. Tommy Robinson saying, save my daughter, or save my wife, I'm going to go and beat up some fucking Muslims. It's not the problem, mate. It's not the problem. You're a pawn in a game, and you can't see it. You people, to use a metaphor from the Matrix, you're blue pills. You would rather live in this fucking fantasy land than see that you're being manipulated and hold those people to account. Why do you think there's so many migrants in the UK? Because the government wants it that way. And I'm laughing because you fuckers can't understand. You don't get it. You really don't understand. It's because they want it that way. And if you could all see that, you right-wing dickheads, turn your attention to those that deserve it. It's not the Pakistani community, it's the government that are causing this, the migrant crisis. Are they all under the same paymaster? And now you on the payroll, Tommy, hey, that Israel thing, you a Mossad asset. You owe them now, bitch. They're gonna come for you. You have to pay that debt, man. Once you cross to that side, that big mistake there, son. Anyway, AF. Here we are. I had several good years. It's been 10 years since the first ablation. And it's been degenerative. It's got worse. Well, every 6 months, every 4 months, every 3 months, 3 times every 2 months. a little bit more here and there. They have to try the different protocol with the different drugs, and we've done that since the beginning of December. I think I've had four cardioversions. No, 3. Well, the first one in 2015, and 3 since this reoccurrence come up. But yeah, so surgery's coming up, and I want to be honest about it. I'm nervous. I do trust the doctors to do their best for me, and the team. You know, I don't think they'll say, "Oh, it's a fat fucking foreigner. Let's give him a cheap job. Give him a Chinese ablation from the dollar store." No, I don't think that at all. I think I've got a good set of doctors. I have faith in their skill set, but still nervous, man. And then we come back to the Atrial Fibrillation Association and Health Unlocked. That's for you, Tracy Admin. I won't even insult you, because you're not worth it, mate. What you've done, you've ruined something that was important and valuable for a lot of people, and you've turned it into censorship, ego-driven regime, where you have this group of people, this group of vulnerable people, that you seek to control their access to information. They come to your forum for information and support, and you censor, you gatekeep the information that they're allowed to have. I posted a 5,000 word essay pretty much, and you deleted it without even reading it. And Bob said, "Oh, you can't post that without admin approval." I'm sorry, what? I can't post on a atrial fibrillation forum about my journey with atrial fibrillation. What is the fucking point of me being here? There isn't one, is there? So I got banned by Tracy Admin. I got banned because I posted an article positing the link between childhood trauma and AF. And I know, you know, it's like the puzzle. I lived it. I know that that's a part of the pie, that ingredient applies to me. And having had discussions with my surgeon and my attending physician, we now have a pathway into looking into that and addressing that. But Atrial Fibrillation Association and Health Unlocked wanted to censor that research and not allow others access to it. I also developed, using Notebook LM, an AI chatbot. Basically loaded it up, and I'm still continuing to load it up with research, cardiology and electrophysiology research. Why? Because my doctor goes above and beyond to give me access to reassurance and compassion, you know, and I feel sometimes like my questions are too stupid to bother him. I mean, he says send me a message anytime, but you know what, to ask him if drinking too much manuka honey in my lemon tea is going to give me AF or not, you know, I don't need to bother him with that. I don't need to. So I built this AI chatbot, and the idea behind it is quite simple. It's to feed all the research in from websites, UK Heart Association, the Japanese one, the French equivalent. I mean, the AI can read all languages. So you post the best research, the best information sources from around the world, Sorry, it's getting a bit windy and my tripod's falling. If I put it a bit closer, I might be able to hold on to it. Yeah, what I was saying. So, putting all these pieces of information together to build an AI chatbot that is trained on more research and more information than any human doctor could ever hold in their mind at one time. And in the process of building this chatbot, part of its training was you are not to give medical advice. You are only to refer to your sources of information to answer the user's question. So if I ask it, does rubbing a shrimp on my toe reduce the occurrence of AF? It can look into the resources and say, no, there's no proven research that rubbing a shrimp on your toe is going to do anything at all to your heart health, so don't bother. You know, that's what it's for. You can question the research through the AI. But Health Unlocked and Atrial Fibrillation Association didn't want a bar of it, and they refused to let the users of a heart forum, who are all adults, access information not from this fat expat living in Japan, but from the top cardiologists globally. They censored their users from accessing that cumulative, that total of data. And I got banned for that. Unbelievable. Censorship. Where's the free speech? What happened to that? You're supposed to have free speech even if you don't like what people say. Do you know what, Tracy Admin? Rubbing the shrimp on your toe does stop AF immediately. So if you've ever had AF, which I doubt, try it. Rub a fucking shrimp on your toe. And it'll just go away as if by magic. Idiots. They really piss me off. And that's why I wanted to document my journey through coming up to this surgery, having the surgery and the aftercare, and sharing it with you lot. And some of the AFers from the forum I know are going to get to hear about this. I mean, Tracy Admin doesn't understand that I've already made another account. Since being banned, you can't stop people accessing the information. I just want to talk to my friends, and I'm going to do, and I'm going to share that information with them, because they're adults and they have a right to choose for themselves what information to access, and to decide whether that information is valid and useful to them or not, and completely disregard it. You can't take that choice away from people, Tracy Admin. And Bob, fuck you, Bob, wanker. Anyway, I don't care, to be honest. You know, I'm laughing at you, but I'm pissed because you've ruined something. You've made it about ego. You know, you can't question Bob. You can't say anything Bob says. Well, no, all hail Bob. You know. It's ridiculous. I found the same thing in Japan with the Ohenro 88 temple community. They have hierarchy and control. You can't do that. You're a service for AF sufferers, not the fucking Gestapo. Let the people read. You should have a library in that forum of the most up-to-date research, and you should have thought of and developed your own AI interface, but you're too profit driven and lazy to serve the customers that you control. That's what you're doing, Tracy Admin. Bob, fuck you, Bob. Yeah, my AI chatbot, it's fucking fantastic, and I think, you know, when it reaches the right table, I can see from the analytics that it's getting used, and I know where the users are from, and it's global. It's not viral, it's not hundreds of thousands of people, but the principle behind it, you know. I'm an English teacher in an elementary school, you know. This should have been done by the Atrial Fibrillation Association, by Health Unlocked, by those more qualified than me, to use these tools to give the members access to the information that they desire. And in the same way the priest dominates the church and acts as the middleman between the petitioner and God, the AFA Association, Health Unlocked, Tracy Admin, Bob, that's what you're doing. You're placing yourselves between a fucking good idea, my AI bot, which is not my research. These are your betters, these are the best scientists in the world, and you're restricting your users' access to their data. Well done you, clap, clap, clap. Censorship, that's what it is. You don't like it because it's not your idea. Well, it's out there now and people are using it, so you lost out. Anyway, I'm going to be more positive. I don't really give a shit. That's why I'm here speaking like this. Get it off my chest. It's a beautiful day. I don't care about all that. Life's too short. What I'm doing is document my journey so that people can see from an authentic point of view, you know, and get to understand. It's not just a case of, oh, he's got AF, let's give him an ablation. The story. Don't judge, say, well, it's because he's a fat fuck. No, it's not because I'm fat. That is part of it, but that's not the reason. How did I get here? And do your own due diligence. Don't take what I say as golden. You know, if you want to know, go and research it for yourself, as I have done. AF, the chance of you having chronic heart disease from childhood trauma is massively increase your chance of AF, up to 50%, or other chronic heart arrhythmias, not only AF or other disease, cardiac, respiratory problems. And I hope this conversation is tell you the cumulative effect of living through a decade of that, and the cumulative effect of trying to put all that right, trying to take care of business, and what that does to a person's mental health and physiological health. It makes changes to your heart, your brain. You know, I think differently because of the, you know, what I've been exposed to during the course of my life. You know, you take your average kid with your average parents who love each other averagely and do average jobs. That kid's got a much better outcome than people who had childhoods like me. And there are many of us, and I'm seeing them today in my work here. I've met a couple of them. You know, it's not a British phenomenon, it's global. Child abuse, neglect. You know, and I look at them and I think you chances of you having AF in 50 years is quite high, mate. I'm sorry for you. That's all for now. I think I'm going to move on with a walk. I wanted to, what did I want to achieve? Just to bring you up to speed in my AF journey. What you know, how it started, how it went up to the first ablation, how that was, and up to this point where we are now. I'm on amiodarone and pilsconide twice a day, and take bisoprolol once a day, and anticoagulant once a day to manage the symptoms. Since the last DC cardioversion and the decision to have a second ablation, I've been AF free, but that total load, amiodarone and pilsconide, is toxic. So you know, I want to get the ablation done, and even if it's not totally successful, to be back on minimal meds for the next 10 years. I mean, I might not live to need a third ablation. So, you know, if I can get another 10 years, then that's grand. I'll be happy with that. I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm nothing special. I'm just, my life. It is what it is, and I'm doing the best with the cards that I've got. I'm doing the best to be authentic in a very inauthentic, fake world. I mean, this won't go on Instagram. There's no fucking point. You get a bit more attention with a picture of your dinner than you do with an authentic conversation. So this is going in a private group. It's going to get chopped up because some of the rants I don't want connecting, and I don't want you to connect the dots. So I've got to edit out some of it. But it's been nice having a chat, and I hope it makes some sense. See ya. Right. Closing thoughts as I walk home. I can only talk about myself. It's the only thing I know about with any authority. Things that I've been through, that I've gotten over, that I've dealt with, that I haven't dealt with. What about you? If you have atrial fibrillation or other arrhythmias, where'd they come from? Genetic? Have you had trauma in your life? One thing that I've also not talked about is in sport. Triathletes have AF. Soccer players, I've seen several. And the one thing I was going to compare to my own treatment was, I think it was a cyclist. I wouldn't say Lance Armstrong, but probably not. But was an elite cyclist, got AF, had an ablation within a week, and then back to cycling. But the mere plebs, we have to follow the pathway. We have to have the 2, doses of medication, the 2 failed attempts, different types of drugs. Before we get considered, or you pay, and that's not really good, is it? Anyway, I just wondered if any of you are brave enough to tell the truth and look back at your own lives and see if there's an event or something there that may have led you to where you are now. Sitting there watching this with AF. Cheers. Have a nice day.